All this is why we need leadership. And it sets the terms for what kind of leadership is needed. There are profound divisions in this society and in the world as a whole. Divisions between classes, nations, men and women, between those who do intellectual work and those who do physical work, and other major divisions. These contradictions can't just be wished away. We cannot get beyond them by pretending they don't exist, or that they don't have any effect and consequences, or by redefining reality in our minds. This is not just somehow a matter of narratives, of different versions of reality, nor will we get where we need to go by different people and different identity groups insisting on their own narratives in place of and in opposition to confronting and radically transforming the actual reality we are up against and the possibilities for change that lie within this reality. Here I just want to read something from Basics as food for thought. I won't go into it here, but it's something to think about. Maybe it'll come up in the Q&A, but it can be pursued and should be pursued beyond that. Basics 410 speaks to this critical point. I'm just going to put it out, food for thought. Why is this so, or is it so? For humanity to advance beyond a state in which might makes right, and where things ultimately come down to raw power relations, will require as a fundamental element in this advance an approach to understanding things, an epistemology which recognizes that reality and truth are objective and do not vary in accordance with nor depend on different narratives, and how much authority an idea or narrative may have behind it, or how much power and force can be wielded on behalf of any particular idea or narrative at any given point. Question is this true? And if so, why is it true that it's important to have this understanding in order for humanity to advance beyond a state in which might makes right and things are reduced to raw power relations? To return to the question of leadership, with which this has a great deal to do, we need leadership with a scientific understanding and a scientific method and approach to guide this struggle through all the complications and difficulties, all the twists and turns to finally overcome all these divisions. And first of all, to lead people to prepare for, and then when the conditions have been brought into being, to wage the all-out revolutionary struggle to bring this monstrosity of a system down and bring into being a new system founded in radically different relations and with radically different institutions and guided by radically different ways of thinking that can establish a whole new foundation from which to carry forward this struggle together with people throughout the globe toward the goal of communism and the end to any and all forms in which one part of humanity enslaves and degrades another part, and in which the functioning of human society leads to the destruction of the natural environment. Where we can get it, we need the collective leadership of a communist vanguard, that core of leadership, and where we have it, we need to take the greatest advantage of outstanding individual leaders who come forward. All this is a precious resource for oppressed people, while at the same time it is a very serious responsibility for those leading people. Without communist leadership, without leadership that bases itself on and proceeds from the most advanced understanding of communist theory and principles, applying the science of communism to lead people while also learning from them, the cold reality is that the most oppressed masses will be kept out and kept down, messed over, and dictated over once again. There will be no real revolution and no new society aiming for a whole new world. Here I think of the Rosetta Stone. When Napoleon invaded Egypt a couple of hundred years ago, they discovered, or I guess I should say rediscovered, the Rosetta Stone, which was sort of like a tablet that had a story. I won't say a narrative, had a story written in different languages. On the top were hieroglyphics. Underneath that was Greek, and then what's come to be called Demotic. The hieroglyphics were the language, as it turned out, of the pharaohs and the upper crust of ancient Egypt. The Greek was Greek, and the Demotic was the language of the ordinary people in the Egyptian, in ancient Egypt. They're still apparently working out some aspects of the Demotic, but fairly quickly they were able to do enough to tell, using the Greek, and then going back and forth between the Greek and the hieroglyphics, that this was the same story being told in these different languages, and it became, as you know, it's a metaphor now, it became a key to opening up all kinds of knowledge. Because the scholars could use the Greek not only to find out what was being said in the hieroglyphic, which turned out it was the same thing as in the Greek, but it opened the key to being able to understand the hieroglyphic written language in a more overall sense. And this opened up all kinds of things which had been previously unknown to people since the time of ancient Egypt. For the masses, especially the most oppressed masses, communism and communist leadership is the Rosetta Stone they need. Reality is very complex. It seems often overwhelming, especially to people struggling just to survive and get through. Tomorrow, your son is shot by the police. The next day, your daughter turns sick and you have no health insurance. Then along comes a movement like Occupy, which says we shouldn't have any leadership. We should have a horizontal organization where everybody can participate equally. Of course, all the real leaders are conspiring behind the scenes. But even leaving that aside and taking that its best interpretation, the problem is you're a woman in Brooklyn in a housing project or in Harlem dealing with the lives of 10 people that depend on you, children and grandmas and all kinds of other people, trying to keep all this together and keep everybody alive and out of trouble. You hear about the Occupy thing, it's difficult for you to even go down there. And then if you get down there, they can do the nice mic checks and everything else. But you're going to be overwhelmed by what they're talking about. You have no experience in this whole thing. You are in the company of graduate students from elite Ivy League universities who have a familiarity and are conversant with all this political discourse. You have things to say and people may even listen to you, but despite the declarations that everybody's going to participate equally, do you really think that this person, this woman coming down from Harlem, is going to be able to join in an effective way on the same basis of people who have a great running head start in their whole lives and in their college and graduate school educations? And furthermore, we have the problem that not only is there the ruling class, but there are these people out of the middle class who bring faulty Greek to the translation of the Rosetta Stone, who present, according to their own prejudices and their own distortions and their own misunderstandings, a false understanding and vision of reality and impose that over reality. And so if you're one of the basic people trying to swim in all this, without the leadership that enables you to penetrate beneath the surface and understand the different parts of reality, without the Rosetta Stone of communism and communist leadership, you're going to be shut down. You're going to be discouraged from even trying to take part after a short time. You're not going to be able to play a conscious role in shaping the development of this movement and more broadly the struggle. The Rosetta Stone opens up all kinds of avenues and possibilities for knowledge. Communism and communist leadership provides the means for masses of people to penetrate beneath the reality, to fight through the seemingly overwhelming difficulty of understanding these things and finding the links and the interconnection and the patterns of things, and to be able to consciously act to change the world on that basis. But with this Rosetta Stone of communism and communist leadership, the masses can not only become active fighters to change the world, but they can increasingly themselves become scholars of the language of changing the world. And this is what the masses of people need, and we're not going to let anyone with their distorted translations tell us that we should not be giving the masses of people the opportunity to have this leadership. I just want to touch on a couple of quick points and then move to a conclusion. I thank you all for hanging in with me all this time. Something that's out there that I wanted to speak to in terms of leadership, and my own leadership in particular, is I know this goes on in whispers, or some people say this among themselves if they don't always say it out loud. Especially among people who've had the bitter experience of being betrayed by leaders, in particular great white fathers. They say, B.A., why do you have to be white? Why couldn't you be black or something? Now, I used to get this back in high school. Back in the days at Berkeley High School where I went to school, my black friends would often say to me, Bobby, that's what they used to call me back then, Bobby, it's a shame you're white. You would make a really great brother. Now, I've always considered that the highest of compliments. But here's the thing. If I were black, I wouldn't be Latino. If I were half black and half Latino, or part black, part Asian, part Latino, and part Native American, and still from America, I wouldn't be from the other parts of the world that are dominated and plundered by American imperialism. I wouldn't be Bangladeshi or Iranian or Arab, for example. If I were male, I wouldn't be female. If I were female and straight, I wouldn't be gay. And so on, and so on, and so on. And where does this end? And really, what is this all about? Once more, we're back to the question, what is the leadership we need? Well, that depends on what we're striving for. It's back to the big question. Why are we in the situation we're in today? Can anything be done to really change this? And if so, what is that change? And how can that change be brought about? To put it another, perhaps simpler way, what is the problem and what is the solution? That tells us what we need to be aiming for, and therefore what kind of leadership we need. Now, as a matter of fact, what I am today is in very important ways and to a very great degree the result of the influence of black people in their struggle, although there have been other influences that have also played an important part in my development. But the most important thing is this. At a certain point, I made a leap to becoming a revolutionary and a communist. And that is a leap that people, more and more people, have to make who want to see an end to all this madness and want a whole new liberating reality for humanity. If we want a world where never again will another youth be shot down by marauding, murderous police, where never again will a woman be raped or brutalized, where never again will masses of women and men be treated in any way as less than fully human, where never again will children die in huge numbers in their infancy, and never again will generation after generation face the same killing madness. If we want a world where all this is finally ended, along with 1,000 other outrages that seem so much a natural part of the human condition, but in fact are totally unnecessary at this point in human history. We need communist leadership, the most advanced, seriously scientific, and far-seeing communist leadership we can get. Many people also say, well, if BA is our leader, the leader of this revolution, then we need to be able to see him and talk to him directly. But the point is, what someone stands for and where this will lead people. What will happen if that person's ideas are taken up and fought for? That is the fundamental question, not whether you can see somebody and literally touch them. And there is the fact, let's be real here, revolution, if it's going to succeed, is going to involve millions and millions of people. And while it is a great thing to have the chance to be among and talk to some of these people who will be part of this revolution, still there are bigger things that have to be kept in mind, including how the powers that be look at and seek to deal with revolutionary leaders. And the fact is that even if I devoted the rest of my life to this, there is no way that I could personally meet with anything more than a small part of the millions who must be part of this revolution. We have launched a campaign which we call BA Everywhere to get this new synthesis of communism, the body of work, the method, approach, and the leadership that is involved with this out very broadly in society. We still have much work to do on that, and we need to go out and raise big money from all kinds of people and get big contributions of ideas, people giving 50 cents or $50,000 and contributing all kinds of ideas of how we can actually break through and get this revolution, the need for this revolution and the leadership we have for this revolution and the content of this revolution out broadly impacting society in a big way. This is what we need to be doing. And in carrying this out in a real sense, the answer to the question, where is BA, needs to be everywhere. This is how the question has to be understood and approached. How can you tell if a leader in a party are for real and will lead things where they need to go? In most basic terms, this is a matter of line, as we say, or to put it another way, a matter of policy and guidelines for the struggle, but above all, a matter of outlook and method and basic strategy and program that set the terms in a fundamental sense for how the struggle should be carried out and carry forward and toward what ends, all along the way and in an overall way. What line is put forward by a leader or group? How is that line carried out and to what effect? Those are the key questions. Now, defending and protecting leadership, as we have put it in our party, building a wall of support and defense around leadership which really does represent the revolutionary way forward, working to defeat attacks on this leadership and to turn this into further exposure of this system and resistance against its completely illegitimate rule. This is a crucial part of building the movement for revolution and working to bring into being the basis for revolution and then actually making this revolution when the time is right, when the conditions have been brought into being, and the millions and millions who must make this revolution are ready and determined to fight to make it.